Good evening, students. Today we will study about chapter number 15, Our Environment, class 10 biology topic. Before starting with this topic, let me tell you one thing: share, subscribe, and suggest this video to other students also, so that they can also take maximum benefit of it. Let us start with this topic, our environment. Human beings are the only organisms who try to change environment always. It is just to fulfill their own needs, increase in population, or great achievements in technology that has damaged the balanced and healthy environment around them. This disbalance is controlled by many human activities like biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste accumulation, and another one is depletion of ozone layer that resulted into devastation effects. Organisms' immediate surroundings constitute its environment, which include everything around the organism, that is both non-living, which is also called abiotic, and living components, that is biotic. Abiotic factors, they are generally physical factors around us, whereas biotic components or biotic factors, they include all kind of living organisms. Those may be green plants, animals, bacteria, fungus, and all. Let us see a chart of biotic and abiotic factor. This circle shows biotic factors, which include plants, animals, bacteria, fungus, protista. Whereas non-living things that include physical factors are water, light, minerals, air, and soil. So both of them are necessary to maintain an environment around us. Both these factors influence the organism and get influenced by them also. This interdependent interaction among organisms as well as with the abiotic components maintain a balance in the nature. Let us see a chart of components of an ecosystem, which consists of abiotic factors and second is biotic factor. Abiotic factor is further of two types: climatic factors and edaphic factors. Climatic factors are which are present in our climate, like rain, temperature, light, or wind. Whereas edaphic factors, they consist of soil, pH of the soil, minerals in the soil, topography, that is land area, description of the land area around us. So they all consist of biotic, abiotic factors. Second one are biotic factors, which further of three types: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers, as you already know, they are green plants and they are mostly autotrophs, consist their own food. Whereas consumers, they consume producers and they are generally primary consumers, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, quaternary consumers, and they are mostly heterotrophs since they eat plant or animals or both plants and animals. Whereas decomposers, they decompose producers as well as consumers, and they include bacteria and fungi. Mostly they are saprotrophs, that is they depend on the decayed matter of plants and animals. Let us see ecosystem, which consists of the two components as already described above. It is defined as the structural and functional unit of the biosphere, comprising living organisms and their non-living environment that interact with each other, forming a stable and self-supporting system. This is the most important line, that these biotic and abiotic factors, they should be dependent on each other. They should interact with each other, and it should always form a stable and self-supporting system. If it doesn't happen, then ecosystem won't work, though it may be made up of living and non-living things, but it won't be able to survive itself. Now, what are the various types of ecosystem? They are of two types: natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Now, the above principle is applied here. Natural ecosystem, biotic and abiotic factors, they are interdependent and they help in maintaining stability of the ecosystem. Whereas artificial ecosystem, biotic and abiotic factors both are present, but they are not interdependent, and we have always to manage them. right? A human intervention, it should always be there. Ecosystem, now let us look at the chart of it. Natural and artificial ecosystem. Natural system may be aquatic, mean water dwelling animals, and terrestrial, mean land, concerned with land. Now aquatic ecosystem, which is in water, it consists of freshwater aquatic ecosystem and marine water. Fresh water consists of lentic, that is ponds and lakes, lotic, that is river and streams, wetlands, marshes and swamps are there. So they always contain an ecosystem. Whereas marine, that consists of the coastal areas of coral reefs, etc., or updwelling areas or open oceans in which ecosystem moves on. Now next one is a land ecosystem, or called as a terrestrial ecosystem, is generally of three types. One is a grassland, where the grass is only present. Then desert ecosystem, where you will find sand and in which abiotic and biotic factors control the ecosystem. Forest ecosystem, where dense forest, dense trees are there. There also ecosystem is prevailing. So there are two types of ecosystem here, natural ecosystem and artificial. Natural ecosystem further of two types. One is aquatic ecosystem and another is terrestrial ecosystem. Let us see what is the difference. Natural ecosystem, they are operated in the nature by themselves without any human interference. Or common examples are pond, lake, meadows, deserts, etc. Whereas artificial ecosystem, they are maintained by man, hence man-made ecosystem. In it, man maintains, it may disturb or manipulate the natural balance. Common examples are croplands, orchards, gardens and aquariums made by us. Now let us move further. Let us see what is difference between the natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Natural ecosystem is a natural unit consisting of all plants, animals and microorganisms. Whereas artificial ecosystem, they are created by human being. Natural ecosystem is a place where plants and animals are dependent on one another. Whereas artificial ecosystem, examples are sugarcane, rice field, wheat garden, dams and aquarium, and basic biotic and abiotic components, they are defined by man in the artificial ecosystem. This means that the biotic and abiotic factors, they are selected by man, they are manipulated by man, they are exploited by man. That is an artificial ecosystem. Just like aquarium which we set up in our home, that is artificial ecosystem. Now abiotic and non-living components of the ecosystem, they include physiochemical factors of the environment. These are inorganic substances just like elements carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, calcium present in the soil, whereas organic substances which may be carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and they are present in the dead organic matter. Climatic factors like light, temperature, humidity, rainfall, then rainfall and water, these are called as edaphic factors, as we have discussed above. Whereas biotic or living components in the ecosystem, they are consist of various types. First one is a producer. They are green plants or blue-green algae and phytoplanktons. Students, these phytoplanktons, they are very small microorganisms found in the water bodies. Second one is that these organisms, they are special in utilizing solar energy of the sun and convert only 1% of it into chemical energy. They are specialized in that. Third is they are also called as autotrophs, since they can manufacture their own food. So I have made a chart for your reference also. As you can see here at the base, I have shown producers. They are made up of plants, various types of plants, and they are all green in color. Right, they are autotroph, they are very large in number. That is why the area is too large here, and that is at the base because it is the start of any biotic factors. Second one is a primary consumer. These primary consumers, they eat producers, And these primary consumer are small animals that include sparrows or shrivels or rabbits or rats or deer. They all are dependent on the plants, but their area or of intervention, as you can see, is very small as compared to that of producers. Reason is because their number reduces, since energy transferred to them from producer is lesser. That's why area shown here is lesser. They are further eaten up by secondary consumers, and the area is still less since number reduces even more. Secondary consumer, as you can see, they include snakes or spiders or fox, right? They are dependent on these animals. They eat only these animals. They don't eat any plant. That is why they are at the secondary consumer level. Whereas the tertiary consumers, they are still small in number and they are at the top of the pyramid. Reason is because they are dependent on the secondary consumer and they eat them, right? So this is what is arrow. Red arrow is a transfer of chemical energy from one pyramid, one section of pyramid to the another. And this sun provides us solar energy which is absorbed by these producers only. And producers are specialized in converting this solar energy into chemical energy. This solar energy cannot be consumed by the primary consumer or secondary consumer or tertiary consumer. They are dependent on producers always for this purpose. Let us see further consumers. They are mainly animals and unable to synthesize their own food. That's why they utilize material energy stored by the producers. They also eat other organisms. That's why they are specially known as heterotrophs. Consumers are of following types: primary or first order consumers. The animals which eat plants are called herbivores or primary consumers. Examples are cattle, deer, goat and rabbit. Secondary consumers or second order consumers, animals which feed on the flesh of herbivores or the animals which depend on the plants. So they are included as a water beetle, cats, dogs and frogs. Tertiary consumers or third order consumers, they are large carnivores which feed on secondary consumers. Examples are large fish, water bird, whales, snakes, as you have seen above. Whereas quaternary or fourth order consumers are the largest carnivores which feed on tertiary consumers, and they are not eaten by any other animals. That is why they are known as top carnivores: tiger, lion, eagle, hawks, sharks, crocodiles, and they are the quaternary consumer. Dear students, one thing I would like to mention, that quaternary consumer has least amount of energy, whereas producers have maximum amount of energy in the pyramid. Their number is large, their energy level is also large. Quaternary or fourth order consumers, they have a least energy value and their number is also least, but they are large in size. Fourth one are decomposers, which are very important one. First is they include bacteria and fungus, and they depend on the decayed food. That is why they are saprophytes. They obtain their food from the organic matter of dead producers and consumers. Mean they flourish on the dead animal and plant tissues. Decomposers also degrade dead remains of plants and animals into simple, small organic molecules that utilize their own nutrition, reproduction, and organic substances that are released into the soil or environment are raw material to be reused by autotrophs. So they do dual function, that they provide food for the autotrophs as well as they also help in simplifying the product present in the cycle. They provide space for the new life in the biosphere, since they help in degradation of already complex dead animals and plants. That's why they clear off the earth. That means they provide space for the new life in the biosphere. Without them, all life will ultimately cease to exist and will remain as a dead material and waste organic matter. Now let us compile this above fact into importance of decomposers. Decomposers help in disposing of the waste and dead body of plants and animals. That's why they clean the environment. and create a space for a living of newer generation of the organisms. Second one is the decomposers release minerals. Since they decay them, they decompose them. That's why they are able to release minerals present in the bodies and other raw materials in organic matter. They are picked up by the plants. Now these simple minerals will be mixed up with the soil, and ultimately with the growth of a new plant, it will be picked up by that plant. So this will help in maintaining soil fertility also. Decomposers produce some acids which are helpful in solubilization of some minerals. This is very important point. Decomposers, since bacteria are there, bacteria are very special in producing acids. Whether they are present in soil, whether they are present in our body, anywhere they are present, they will certainly produce acids. And these acids help in breaking up of the minerals. Whether calcium or magnesium or iron, that will be broken up. Okay, so in soil they help in making product or minerals very simple. Decomposers help in recycling the material in the biosphere so that the process of life may go on and on like an unending chain. So they are very important. Otherwise, the dead bodies will be accumulated in the body. These are only decomposers which help in making the elements simplified, recycling the material in the environment, provide that material back into the new plant. The biggest role is done by these decomposers. Now let us see further food chain. In any given ecosystem, all living organisms are linked in a systematic chain with respect to their mode of manufacturing food. This interaction among autotroph, heterotroph and consumers help in transferring material and energy from one level to the next in the unidirectional manner, as we have seen above. In the form of pyramid, the energy was transferred from the producers to the heterotrophs and then to the consumers, from one level to the another. And this is always unidirectional, it never moves on from the consumers back to the autotrophs. It never happens so. It is always in the unidirectional manner. Therefore, all organisms are interlinked in a definite sequence and involve transfer of energy from producers to the upper link of the food chain. So there is a chain formed between the autotroph to the primary consumers and then secondary consumer and then top carnivores. There is a sequence formed here. Now next one is the sequential interlinking of organisms involving transfer of food energy from the producer through a series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten is called the food chain. This is a definition of it. Sequential, there is a sequence formed between the animals which involve transfer of food energy from the producer through a series of various organisms with repeated eating. As you can see here, I have shown here one figure showing the food chain, in which producers they are eaten by primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumer, then tertiary consumer, then predators or top carnivores. Okay, so there is a sequence of these animals and it always remain as such. There is a transfer of material from one organism to another. There is a transfer of energy in the form of chemical energy from one organism to another. From the top carnivore, once they will die, it will be decomposed by the fungus or bacteria in the soil. Now the complex material or tissues of the top carnivore will be decomposed in the soil, and the simplest particles or molecules will be given to the producers further. In a way, there is a recycling of the material which is occurring here. Now next one is length of food chain. There are various lengths of food chain, students. Thus there are distinct steps in the food chain for the transfer of energy, and we call them as trophic levels. This is one trophic level, second trophic level, third trophic level. So there are levels in the food chain. We call them as trophic level. Green plants, they form the first trophic level, herbivores form the second trophic level, carnivores form the third trophic level. In an ecosystem, different food chains may be 3, 2 or 4, maximum 5 trophic level systems. Let us see 3-step food chain. Here green plant, they are absorbing solar energy and giving conversion into chemical energy, and that will be shifted to the herbivore, then to the tiger. This is a 3-step food chain which involve 3 trophic levels. 4-step food chain involve 4 trophic levels, where the grass is there, eaten by grasshopper, it is further eaten by mouse, mouse is further eaten up by owl. This is a 4-step food chain. Now this is a first trophic level or producers, second trophic level or known as primary consumers, whereas this is third trophic level and they have secondary consumers, and this is a top carnivore at the 4th trophic level. Let us move further with the 5-step food chain, which includes sun, which give energy to the grasshopper, to the grasshopper, to shrew, to the owl. Now next one is a characteristic of the food chain. Further, let us see. A food chain involve a nutritive interaction between living organisms. There occur repeated eating and each group eat the other group. This is very special, that there is a repeated eating from one step to the another. Second is a food chain is always a straight. It is never in a web form, it is a straight one, and there is a unidirectional flow of energy. Third is there are a very small number of trophic levels. Number of levels are very less, not exceeding 5. A reason is being that energy transferred is very less than the energy wastage. So energy wastage is much more as compared to the energy transfer to the tissue level. So that's why these ones do not exceed more than 5 trophic levels. Next one is significance of food chain. The study of food chain help in understanding food relationship and interactions among the various organisms and in ecosystem. The food chains transfer energy and material between various living components of an ecosystem. The food chain transfer energy and material between various living components in an ecosystem or biosphere. Dynamicity is maintained by it, and movement of toxic material like pesticide, weedicide, they are also seen through the food chain. It doesn't mean that food chain is always helpful for transferring food from one organism to another. Harmful materials, they are also transferred through the food chain. That is another significance of it. That is a bad effect of it. If there are good effects of food chain, bad effects are also there, which include significance, that constitute significance. Now let us see food web. It is a network of food chains, right? Network of various food chains which become interconnected at various trophic levels so as to form a number of feeding connections among us different organisms of a biotic community. So it is a kind of web. In nature, food chains do not operate in isolation because each organism is generally eaten by 2 or more kind of organism which are eaten by several other organisms. For example, plant is eaten by grasshopper, caterpillar, rat, rabbit, goat, etc. Right, so plant is not only eaten by one organism, but it is eaten by grasshopper, even caterpillar, rat, rabbit, deer, goat, many other organisms. Rabbit and rat are further eaten by snakes, and snake are eaten up by the hawks, as you can see here. Now students, as you can see a food web in the terrestrial ecosystem as well as marine ecosystem. In terrestrial ecosystem, these are autotrophs which are eaten up by rabbit or by mouse. This wildflower can be eaten by mouse, or rabbit can eat grass, right? So they are forming a web-like structure, rabbit by snake, or mouse can be eaten by the hawk directly. Hawk can eat snake also, hawk can eat rabbit also. So as you can see that there is a kind of web created here. Okay, so this is called a food web. Whereas in a marine ecosystem, if you see here phytoplanktons, which are very small microorganisms found in water, eaten by the zooplanktons or animal planktons. Then fish is eating this phytoplankton or zooplanktons, or krill is eaten by this cod, and further, various organisms are interlinked by eating each other. Such a kind of web or network is called as a food web. Now, characteristics of food web. Number one, unlike food chain, food webs are never straight. Food chains were straight, but food webs are never straight. Instead, each food web is formed by interlinking of food chains. Second is, a food web provide alternative pathways for food availability. This is a surety that where food web is available, food availability will be there. Third is, it makes ecosystem always stable. Fourth is that food web also help in checking the overpopulation of largely found species. If any species has a very large number of organisms, that will be controlled because of the food web. And fifth is, food web also help in ecosystem development. Right. So that is beneficial as compared to the food chain. Let us see what is difference between food chain and food web. First is, food chain is a phenomenon of transfer of energy through series of organisms from one step to another, whereas food web is interconnection of food chains which show relation between them. Second is, in food chain, members of higher trophic level feed upon the members of lower trophic level, whereas in food web, members of higher trophic level can feed on the member of the upper trophic level of the other food chain also. Third is, in food chains, separate and isolated food chain increase the instability of the ecosystem. So there is no stability found in ecosystem because of this food chain. Whereas a food web, stability of ecosystem is always there, mean that if an organism can get food from one prey or the another prey, so it will always survive. Fourth is, it comprises of only one chain, whereas large number of chains are there. Removal of group of organism disturb the whole chain. So one organism is removed, the whole chain will be destroyed. For example, if a deer is removed from the 3-step food chain, what is going to happen is that lion will be starved off and it will die, and along with that grass will grow at a very large level. So at both the levels which are before and after the deer, they will be too much in disbalance and the ecosystem will be disturbed. Whereas in a food web, a removal of one group of organism is not going to disturb the whole food web. Okay, I hope you understood what is the difference between them. Now further with the food chain and food web, we are moving to the next step, that is 10% law, which was put forward by Lindemann 1942. It is also termed as a second law of thermodynamics. They state that during transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level, only 10% of the energy is available to the higher trophic level, and the remaining 90% is lost as a wastage. And this wastage is in the form of respiration and heat. So this is what is said by the scientist. In every food chain, there is a transfer of energy which is unidirectional, and only 10% of the energy at each level is available to the next level, and rest is not available for making up the body tissue. For instance, 1000 joule of solar energy falls on vegetation. Plant absorb about 1% of the incident solar radiation. Okay, let me show you a diagram first, then only you will be able to understand it. Now here in this diagram, plant is there. Now this plant is absorbing only 1% of the energy given by the sun. Suppose sun is giving 1000 joule of light energy is given by the sun, only 1000 joule. 1% of it is 10 joule. Okay, if you calculate, it will come out to be 10 joule only, which will be retained by the producer, right? And from here it is only 1%, but further in the trophic level it will be 10% transfer from the producer to the first trophic level. 10 joule of energy will be available to the next level as a 1 joule, which is a 10% of it, and 990 joule of energy will be lost as such. Whereas from here, the next level, only 0.1 joule of energy will be available and zero point 0.9 joule of energy will be wasted as such. So here it was 1000 joule. Coming to the plant turned out to be 10 joule only. Next step 1 joule, next step 0.1 joule. And look at the wastage of energy here mentioned. 990 joule waste at first step, 9 joule at the second step, 0.9 joule at the third step. That is the reason that the food chain steps are very small in number. That may not exceed more than this 5 step. Reason is because 10% loss shows that energy transfer to the next level is always lesser, quite less, 10% only. So lost is more as compared to the usage of it. For example, 1000 joule of solar energy fall on vegetation. Plants absorb only 1% of the incident solar radiation. Thus, about 10 joule of energy is trapped by the plant and converted into chemical energy. The remaining 990 joule is lost. And according to the 10% law, only 1 joule of the energy is stored in the flesh of herbivores, 9 joule is lost to the environment, and 0.1 joule energy is available with the carnivore, and 0.9 joule energy is lost in the environment. So this is what is told by the 10% law. Let us see what is significance of this law. What does it want to show that? The 10% law provides a basic understanding on the cycling of food chains. They give us a basic understanding that on what basis these food chains happen or they move on. That is the transfer of energy. Second is, furthermore, 10% law shows the inefficiency of energy captured at each successive trophic level. The rational conclusion is that energy efficiency is best preserved by sourcing food as close to the initial energy source as possible. So it means that inefficiency of energy captured is always there at one or the another trophic level. That is why wastage is too much. Third is, it also explains why there are only 4 and 5 steps in a food chain, as I have already discussed with you that wastage of energy is too much and usage is very less. That's why 4 to 5 steps are there in the food chain only. Now next things which are related, factors which are related with the environment are I am dealing with. First is a global warming or greenhouse effect. Global warming occurs when CO2 and other air pollutants or greenhouse gases, they are collected in the atmosphere and they absorb sunlight that are bounced back from the earth atmosphere. These radiations would escape into the environment, but the pollutants won't allow them to go out. They retain them in the form of a heat and cause the planet to get hotter. So this is what is called a greenhouse effect. The gases which trap sunlight in the atmosphere, they are carbon dioxide, methane and carbon monoxide. Now let me show you a diagram here. There is a greenhouse effect, as you can see here. Greenhouse effect, sun, solar radiations passes through the clear atmosphere, that will move to the atmosphere, and most radiation is absorbed by the earth atmosphere and will warm it. Okay, it will try to be trapped inside and move out of it. Some radiation is able to move out of the earth atmosphere, but mostly many radiations, they are trapped inside and will remain inside because of the pollutants, and this will cause the atmosphere to be warm up. Okay, now let us see what is consequences of global warming. First is that environmental, economic and health consequences are very much seen. Melting of glaciers, early snow melt and severe droughts will occur. Melting of glaciers, जितने भी पानी के glaciers हैं उनकी melting होना. Snow melt is there at the North Pole, and then severe droughts are there because of the shortage or increase in the risk of wildfires are sometimes there, shortage of water is there. These effects are all because of that, and these are effects are because of the global warming. Next is rising of sea level. If floods come because of the large amount of water, certainly floods will occur. Rising of the sea level will be seen. Forest farms and cities will face troublesome new pest, heat waves, heat downpours, etc. Okay, so these are all effects because of the greenhouse effect. Disruption of seaweeds and aquatic habitats such as coral reef. Seaweeds and other organism, they live in the sea and their habitat will be disrupted because of this one, because if temperature increases they won't live in the sea. Next is allergies, asthma and infectious diseases that will outbreak more commonly due to increased growth of pollen producing ragweeds, high level of air pollution and the spread of various unfavorable pathogens and mosquitoes. They are all because of the trapping of the energy, that is trapping of heat, that these ragweeds will be there, and then pathogen and mosquito number will increase in the atmosphere. Second effect is a biomagnification. It is a process by which toxic concentration and harmful chemicals built up in the tissue of animals. Toxic concentration of toxic material that increases at each level, trophic level or food chain. Mean if some percentage of toxins are present at the producer level, then at primary consumer it will increase. To the secondary consumer it will increase much more. And at the top carnivore like human being, the level will be the highest. That is what it is called as a biomagnification, because these chemicals which move along in the food chain, that would never die, and that will move with the tissue and will increase its concentration, resulting in the harm to the animal toward the top of the food chain, which affects the entire food chain. Let us see what is significance of biomagnification. It is a cumulative increase in the concentration of substances like pesticides and metals. It occurs when agriculture, industrial and human waste are poured in the fields. So they are increased because these waste are poured into the sea or river or in the form of a sewage. Sometimes they come in contact with water or soil. That's why their number will increase, concentration will increase. With each step up the food chain, there is an increase in the concentration of these chemicals. This affect human because a large percentage of fish we consume are higher on the food chain and therefore likely to carry a high concentration of potentially harmful chemicals. So top carnivores, if we consume them like fish, they will be very harmful for us if we eat them. Next is contaminants. Like DDT is there or BCP is there. They are taken up by the organism and that is going to intoxicate our body as well as our environment. Let me show you a diagram of process of biomagnification here. You will be able to understand it better. Here is an explanation. If you see here phytoplanktons, these are small phytoplanktons. Concentration of biopesticide is very less. But for the primary consumer, concentration has increased much more. To the secondary level, even more. Tertiary level, even more. And at the quaternary level, where man is there, concentration of this one pesticide is too much. That is intoxicating body of a human being. That is why if he get intoxicated, many chances are there that there is a formation of cancer in him, which may disturb the whole of the food chain here. Okay, so there are various harmful effects of the biomagnification of these pesticides which come through the soil as well as through water. At each step of the food chain, there is result in increase in the toxic level of the pesticides. Now next, third effect in the environment or to the atmosphere is ozone layer depletion. It is a reduction of the amount of ozone in the stratosphere. Depletion begins when CFCs get into the stratosphere. And students, you know that this CFC is present in almost every gadget used in our home. Whether that is AC or refrigerator, this gas is released out of it. The chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons and others destroy ozone layer. These chemicals are found in all sort of things, Now next is image below shows a simplified example of how a CFC molecule impact the ozone. CFCs do not directly destroy the ozone layer, but there are many chemical reactions in the atmosphere which help in destroying them. Let us see that. UV rays are there, they will try to enter in our atmosphere. Now if you look here, these are CFC molecules. Chlorofluorocarbon, this is carbon, chlorine molecules, fluorine molecule, that is CFC. Chlorofluorocarbon, such a big molecule. Okay, now with the help of these radiations, this CFC molecule will break up. Directly UV rays are not going to affect these molecules, but they will break the bond in them. As a result, the molecule which are released by breaking up, that will combine with the ozone molecule, and that will join with the ozone molecules. As a result, a toxic molecule will be formed here. This molecule is going to break up the ozone layer. Where the blanket is there, this will take up these molecules here, and the whole blanket will be torn out as a result of it. So this is how it affects. Ozone depleting molecules, CFC, is found in aerosols or refrigerants and solvents. Okay, so these are present there. I hope you understood what is a ozone hole and how is it formed. Effects. Ozone layer depletion causes increased UV radiation level at the Earth's surface. Once the ozone layer is depleted because of the complex formed, so this ozone layer will be depleted out, because ozone molecules will move out of it, out of the layer. That is ozone layer depletion. That causes increased UV radiation level at the Earth atmosphere, which damage the human health. Negative effects include increase in certain type of skin cancers because of these UV rays, eye cataract, immune deficiency disorders. They are all because of the ozone layer depletion. Because we are very much sensitive to such UV radiations, our skin cancer is responsibility of UV radiation, eye cataract may be because of it, and immune disorders may also be because of this one. Then UV rays also affect plant growth and reduces agriculture productivity. Let us care for our environment, because these issues are not small, they are very big. Whether that's an ozone layer depletion or a biomagnification, it is certainly affecting us. That is a top trophic level is being affected, because of which the food chain will be destroyed. I have given a very short poem for you to read. Thank you very much, viewers, and I hope you will subscribe, like and share my video to other viewers who are keen to know about our environment topic. Thank you very much.